So the plan is to actually try something new. This is in like completely new video series on actually what is automotive spice, what is the current situation of automotive software compliance, and how can we navigate those challenges and actually make the best use of frameworks like automotive spice while leveraging AI and more specifically AI agents to the fullest extent possible to actually give your engineers the time back they are currently wasting on manual overhead like documentation, excessive meetings, trying to find information, and reworking things they didn't implement properly just because we didn't have good systems engineering documentation or the right information in the right place at the right time. So I'm actually more than excited that you are here. And yeah, let's just jump right into it. I have brought a couple of questions I'd like to answer, and let's get started right away. So question number one, what is actually automotive spice? And for that, I'd like to first turn to Google actually. And let's just see what the AI summary spits out. So we have the summary here on the screen. And what it says is Automotive SPICE is an internationally recognized standard developed by the VDA, the German Engineering Association for Automotive Industry. And it's made for improving software development processes along the lines. So this is pretty much how I would have summarized it also. I mean, Automotive SPICE dates back to the 1990s, I'm pretty sure. There was a committee of OEMs and tier ones, especially in Germany, including Mercedes-Benz, Continental, Volkswagen, and so on, that actually saw the need to come up with a framework or standard of assessing software quality for especially highly safety critical systems, embedded systems back in those days. So we are talking the first ESP system, ABS systems, airbag control systems. So we are not talking about HPCs like these big GPU powered NVIDIA boards we have now in the more advanced ADAS and autonomous driving cars. It was really like bare metal ECUs where there was like a couple 100,000 lines of code, like low level C. And yeah, that this was like the industry's push to standardize the quality assurance framework, eventually to make it easier for OEMs to assess if the tier one actually delivered a product that was of good quality. And eventually this would also serve as like a legal precedence, basically, where the tier one could say if they applied to, like, if they complied with the ASPICE standard or ASPICE quality assurance assessment framework, that if they complied, they would actually be safe in court. Like if there was a claim from whoever, from the consumer or the OEM, the tier one could actually show all the documentation according to ASPICE and say, we applied best practices, current standard, like state of the art. So they ideally couldn't be held liable for any shortcomings in the engineering. Yeah. So maybe 1-2 sentences more on what is ASPICE. Let's jump back briefly to the company's page, to the VDA page of ASPICE. So as you see here, it's an assessment model. So if you are being assessed for automotive SPICE compliance, there's capability levels you're being assessed for. So level 0 is something you don't want to see in the assessment outcomes, which basically says you don't have a proper quality management system in place. You don't have proper processes defined to assure high quality software engineering. And as you progress through the levels, you see level 1 basically says there's an existing process. Level 2 says it's not just existing processes, they're also planned and monitored with clear responsibilities. So that's already like a very solid level of implemented process quality. And then level 3 really is that you have standardized processes and that basically this whole quality implementation is properly managed. Level 4-5 is really like the tip of the iceberg, but most OEMs require something around level 1 to level 2 to level 3. Process areas that are covered in the automotive SPICE framework, you can actually see here, it's not the nicest quality, this screenshot, but I show it anyway. So you have the whole product development process that is covered. So this is what they call systems and software engineering. So this is requirements, architecture design, code design, and unit testing, integration, qualification testing. And then they have supporting process areas, which is quality assurance, config, problem, and change management, and which is newly added machine learning, data management, and also the machine learning engineering process groups. There's one area talking about supplier monitoring and supply management, product release. It touches upon hardware engineering now as well. And then, of course, project management, risk management. So it's very comprehensive. And if we look into the standard itself, I think it's like 130 pages that pretty much lay out each of the like required base practices, expected process outcomes, and so on for each of those process areas. So you see ASPICE really is a beast. One of the biggest shortcomings of ASPICE is that it's an assessment model. So think of it as like a checklist, right? There are assessors being trained on this framework, and they come into your organization and they see, okay, are you fulfilling those steps? So it is far from an implementation blueprint, but also there's no implementation blueprint at all publicly available. So what a lot of companies do is they take this very, very lengthy standard. We can have a look at it as like the last version many companies still use, the v3.1. It's without the machine learning stuff. And they actually then go and say, okay, right, we need to implement, for example, requirements engineering. And then like the OEM or tier one would go and actually write a process that is going along those expected process outcomes, base practices, and so on, that assures there's the work products that are required here. But remember, this was initially written in the 1990s. So we have artifacts and aspects like change control record, or we have communication record, review record. So those things are pretty much back in the days when you had like pen and paper, and you had to, if you wanted to capture a decision, you had to like type it or write it and put it into your archive, right? Put it in a ledger, into your wallboard, so you could pull it out eventually if you needed. So that was actual work products. It was like something you could hold in your hands. Today, with the tools we use, they are heavily cloud-based, real-time collaboration enabled. So a lot of those like work products are now just part of the tools. So a lot of companies confuse this now as per like, okay, we need an Excel spreadsheet or a document that has to be signed. That's the record. So those kind of instructions here, and that's the biggest shortcoming, I think, or what I hear a lot about ASPICE is that companies try and implement this as if this was a blueprint, but this is an assessment framework. So you can have very lean processes that are heavily relying on automations, tools, and AI to take care of all this. So your engineers can actually keep focusing on engineering the product. But most companies I've seen actually implement very bloated processes that are just way over engineered, that suffocate progress, innovation, and basically kill any momentum and joy and flow amongst the engineers. So, and this is something I would actually like to look at in the next couple of videos as for like, where's this coming from? What's the biggest critique points? And how could we do this differently, right? Like what's lean ways, tools, frameworks, approaches that allow us to comply with ASPICE and get to level 1 to 3 without actually wasting human resources on it, but doing it by using the right tooling, custom automations, and heavily relying on AI agents, actually. So I hope this didn't get too long and too lengthy. It's the first couple of videos now that I'm trying to do in this kind of format. So please bear with me, and I would really appreciate your comment if you have anything that you would like me to do differently, if you found something annoying, if you would like to hear more about certain things. I would really, really appreciate your feedback.